It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. And this is my favorite thing that happens on the show is Anthony does a whole Academy Award winning caliber acting of something in relation to the music that is playing that I and only I get to enjoy in full because, again, Anthony, the radio audience can't see you and the YouTube audience can't hear the rejoin music. Thanks, copyright laws.
Dang it. I think the only time the audience knows what song I'm vibing out to is Friday.
Yeah.
We actually haven't had a Friday Rebecca Black,
No, we haven't. I've been gone. You've
in
been gone.
a long time.
This Friday, though, right? You're not gone?
I am gone.
You are?
No, I'm joking. This is going to be the first Friday in like 5 weeks.
Since like July.
Yeah, like 2 weeks before the end of July.
Yeah. Well, no, not that long. Well, were you
Yeah,
gone?
I was gone. I
you were
wasn't
gone
there
on
on that Friday,
surprise.
the 26th of July.
Mm.
I think the last time we were together on
Anthony's
a Friday,
got a board. It's like the days without incident board. He's got days since played and Rebecca Black.
Nah, for real. I have not played it. I'm sad.
Have you played it in your own personal life? Have you, as you're on the airplanes or wherever it is that you're
Nah,
going, have you
I don't
popped it up on the playlist?
I don't even think it's crossed my mind to play that song, when I'm not here.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm. I told Toby on Friday, I was like, oh, normally Anthony plays it. He's like, oh, too bad I didn't get the memo. I was like, yeah, I'm so sad.
It would have been crazy if he just played it, though.
We're going to get to our main topic / question of the day about Jaden Daniels and whether or not he should play in the preseason game in a second. But, Anthony, this was going around the internet yesterday, and since we're here and the Russell show went a little bit late. No, we're not going to do the flag football thing now.
Oh, okay.
That is, I'm going to destroy you in an argument about flag football versus NFL players later in the show. Don't you worry. If you're interested in that, 5:45, mark it down in your calendars. But this was going around the internet this weekend. Actually, it might have even been yesterday. I saw a tweet, and I got lost in the replies. Are you an Apple Music or a Spotify person?
Apple Music.
Because someone tweeted, I just listened to a song on Apple Music, and what are these sounds that I've never heard before? And apparently, the sound quality that those of us that are Spotify users use compared to the lossless audio on Apple Music, I would basically be re-listening to all my favorite songs again if I switched over. Apparently, it's that significant.
Ain't no way.
I wish there was a way to.
Is it really that bad? That
noticeable? I guess I could put in. I have Apple Music. I just never use it. I guess I could put some headphones in right now and test it and tell people whether or not I think there's a huge difference. I could pop my AirPods in, but I don't think that'd be very good radio.
Wow. We can discuss in the break. I'll play Apple Music. We'll play one song. What song should we play?
I always go to really big beats on stuff like this, so a Dr. Dre something.
Okay.
Like a California Love or Still DRE, something that is really rich, or a Timberland beat, something that's really sonically rich. I tend to go to on tests like this.
Yeah.
I'm typically biased towards Dre because a lot of times when I've done sound tests like this, I'm testing Beats by Dre headphones, and I'm like, well, why would you not go straight to the source?
Yeah.
But I have some AirPods.
I never knew that.
But the problem is that playlist wise, I'm so stacked up on Spotify, and what I'm stacked up with is nothing compared to my wife. Rachel's a Spotify celebrity.
She download music every Friday because there's new music that drops every Friday.
Yeah.
So she's probably one of those.
She's got. She used to coach fitness in the mornings, and she would just literally go to the studio, waiting on her clients to get there, and pop on the new music to see if there's anything she wanted to add.
Oh wow!
But she's on top of music like crazy because she coaches fitness and makes playlists multiple per week, sometimes. And so, yeah, if there was a way, this was actually one of the common replies. If there was a way to transfer your Spotify playlists over to Apple Music, game's over. Everyone would be on Apple Music. The problem is people have been on Spotify for years and have mounds and mounds of playlists and recreating them would be a pain in the butt.
Oh,
Or
so
like resubscribing to podcasts, because I also use Spotify for my podcasts. And part of it was for a long time, Spotify had the 1.2x feature, which is how I listen to podcasts,
Yep.
which is also, by the way, really funny because sometimes I hear people speak in real, like I'll watch a video on YouTube or something, and especially if I hear like the theme songs,
Yeah.
and I'm like, that's what that sounds like?
Yeah.
Why is it so slow? Oh, right. I'm the sicko who listens on 1.2 speed. But Apple Podcast has a 1.25x.
They have 1.5 as well.
Yeah, but 1.5 is too fast.
Yeah.
1.5 is for true sickos who are just trying to get through tremendous amounts of information. Like, I know people that listen on 2.3x, and I'm like, you can, but I want to enjoy like, if you have to cram for something,
your
sure.
brain would hurt also.
But like 1.2x is slow enough that it still sounds like a speech pattern.
Yeah.
1.5, it's clearly spread up. My brain doesn't go that fast.
Yeah.
Or it can adjust, but I don't to get the enjoyment out of it. It feels like I'm listening to something rush. Like my heart rate rises. I'm like, what are we in a rush for? Slow down. But you tell me at 1.2x I can listen to, what is it, like an hour podcast in 40 minutes? That's worth it.
Yeah.
I'll do that for sure.
Yes, sir. That's what I do.
So yeah, you're a 1.2x or 2. So Spotify had that, and for a while Apple was either 1 or 1.5, and so I just switched over to Spotify, and this is a better experience. But now I'm like, should I switch am I losing audio quality? Should I just switch over everything to
Apple Music. Oh, so it's a Spotify issue. Okay.
Yeah, it's
Just
a
making
Spotify
okay.
like sound compression issue.
Yeah, I can't relate.
Yeah. I'm gonna test this out in the break. But I don't know how we got on this topic, but I need to know. You can tweet me at Craig Hoffman. You can also leave, if you're speaking of streaming stuff, if you're on YouTube right now and you're watching this, you can leave a comment as we stream the show live daily on YouTube at the Team 980. However, coming up next, let's dive into it. Should Jaden Daniels play in the final preseason game? That is our question of the day, and we're going to take your calls on it. 301-230-0980. Dan Quinn answered a question about it earlier in the week. We'll let you hear DQ and what he had to say then. We'll give you our thoughts now and take yours. 301-230-0980. Your calls and a discussion about QB1 for the rest of the hour here on The Hoffman Show. All right, quickly, before we get to the Jaden Daniels talk, Anthony, we did the audio test in the break.
Yes, we did.
Courtesy of Nothing But a G Thing by Dr. Dre and Snoop, Apple Music definitely has better sound quality. Dang.
It might be time.
I might have to switch. If anybody has advice on switching their playlists from Spotify to Apple Music, holler at your boy. Like, what? ChatGPT's got to be able to do that somehow, right? AI, come on. How do we? Someone design something. Programmers, get on it. The world needs it. Okay. Here's what we need right now. Earlier in the week, Dan Quinn was asked, "Are you going to play Jaden Daniels in the final preseason game?" And he basically said, "I'll decide later in the week." And that's a week of debate online, on radio, on all of the places that we talk about our football teams. It goes on because we know at this point he is QB1. That has been decided. And the question now is, what do you do with that information? For me, the answer is actually not very clear because I can make distinct arguments on either side because it's not clear cut either way, one or the other. That it is definitely the right way to do it. And that's very evident based off the league. Matt Stafford's not going to touch the field the entirety of the preseason. Patrick Mahomes is going to play a lot. C.J. Stroud has played some in the preseason. Joe Burrow has not played, I don't think at all, if very much. Like, there are good quarterbacks that will have great seasons that will do both, that will play some, that will play a little, that will play a lot, that will play none. And it comes down to, what do you want to do as a coach? How much risk are you willing to take on? And I think the biggest question that I have is, what are you actually getting out of the reps? One, there is a logistical part of this that Dan has talked about actually more than almost any other coach that I've ever heard about. What is it like to go through your pregame routine? And this would offer Jaden Daniels an opportunity to go through his pregame routine at home for the first time. He's never done it before. He's never taken the field at Commander's Field. He's never run out of the tunnel. He's never gone from his locker to whatever he wants to do. And your home routine can be different than your road routine because there's just a lot more available to you at home than on the road. With that said, you can go through all that and not play. And coaches will do that. And sometimes they won't even tell the players until right before kickoff. Typically that happens in the first preseason game, not the last. But they'll get guys lathered up. They want them warming up as if they're going to play. And then they'll at the last second be like, "You can take your pads off. We're not doing that today. Thanks, but way to take the pregame seriously." I don't feel like that's a Dan Quinn bit. I don't feel like he would do that. I feel like he would tell Jaden, "Hey, I want you to warm up as if you're going to play. This is your work for the day, so take it seriously. We want you to get this work in." And Jaden would do that, as would some of the other starters, and go through the process. There's also a chance they just tell him, "Hey, dude, you're totally off." And there's obviously a chance that they tell him, "Hey, man, you're going to go out there for a series," and that they actually follow through on that. So you have the routine part of it. That is part one of the equation. Part two is the most significant part, which is, what are you actually getting out of the reps? And this is where I think a lot of coaches just go, it's not worth it. The juice is not worth the squeeze, because you typically are going to play not the other team's starters, and you're certainly not getting a game plan level, detail-oriented defense. And Jaden Daniels has already proven he has passed the preseason vanilla defense test. If New England's just going to go out there and play a vanilla version of their defense, Jaden Daniels is more than capable of dicing it to pieces. We know that because that's all he's done all preseason long, is move the ball down the field successfully. And yes, did he score, a touchdown on every single drive? No. 2 out of 3 ain't bad. Because he did score 2 out of 3. No, I guess they had one a field goal. They had 2 field goals attempts versus the Dolphins. Yeah, one that they missed, one that they made.
Yep.
All right. But he moved the ball just fine. And if you want to say, let's get him even more reps, because reps is experience and he needs experience, then okay. That's fine. I don't think that there is a ton of value at this point in doing more of that. And then you balance that with the risk, which is the one for certain guaranteed thing that you can say about playing players in the preseason is if they don't play in a game, they can't get hurt in a game. I guess theoretically, if they're on the sideline and they get rolled up on or something, they could, but they're not going to get hurt in the field of play as a player if they don't play. And that certainty of knowing this is our guy, we've gotten him ready for the regular season. We've done the joint practice thing, which is probably harder than the preseason games. And he's ready to go right now and would not be any more ready by playing. Why would you expose him to that risk? And that's why ultimately I fall down on the side of I would not play Jaden Daniels in the preseason finale. Now, if you have a conversation as Dan Quinn with Gerard Mayo, the head coach of the New England Patriots, and Mayo's like, we're playing our ones, and we got a couple of things in that could challenge you. We're practicing what it's like to game plan this week, which some coaches used to do more of in the past. In the third preseason game, there used to be some light game planning just to get players used to it. They don't really do that with the 3 preseason games now. And if Mayo was like, I'm taking it old school, we're going to play our ones, and there's going to be some stuff in that's going to make it difficult, is it worth it to put Jaden Daniels out there? I would say it's more worth it than if they don't. It's more worth it than him going out there and facing New England's twos against a vanilla defense. Definitely would be more worth it. And that experience maybe prevents you from having a hiccup early in the season because he sees something, learns something that he would have otherwise learned in a regular season game. And ultimately, that's what it is. Like, it is a learning experience. It is a chance to gain experience. It's a chance to get reps. It's a chance to get time on task. But typically, it's not a lot of time. Those reps aren't very high quality. And the risk is, well, we know what the risk of playing football is. And so for that reason, assuming that New England is not going to do anything crazy, although that franchise, who freaking knows, assuming that New England is just going to play it preseason game 3, I don't think it is worth it to play Jaden Daniels in the final preseason game. And the last, I guess, final part of this equation is, where is your guy currently? And Jayden is at a point where he's ready to play. Like, he clearly can handle the speed. He processes it really well. He doesn't need a ton more of these same types of reps. He needs to now get into what it's like to master a game plan and go against a defense that's geared to stop you, that's taking away certain things, that is shifted in a way to try to expose your weaknesses and make you try to, play against their strengths. And I don't think that playing in the finale is going to get him any more ready than that. I think of actually something that I was watching Hard Knocks last night, and Caleb Williams was sitting down with Matt Eberflus after their latest preseason game, and Flus goes, "So what'd you learn?" And Caleb kind of jokes, and he goes, "Practice is harder than the game." And I think a lot of people are going to watch that clip, and especially a lot of people with preconceived notions of Caleb Williams, and go, "What an arrogant young man." They probably will substitute some kind of derogatory something in for young man. But what an arrogant you-know-what. And the reality is, to this point, Caleb Williams is not wrong. Because Caleb Williams has faced vanilla, preseason, not best players, not remotely schemed up defenses, where in practice, he's facing Jalen Johnson and Montez Sweat and all the dudes that they've invested in on the defensive side in Chicago. The game plans might be a little bit more specific because they probably have tried to create situations that have made it harder for Williams to get him ready for the regular season. So I would hope that's actually a good job by the Bears staff working as a unit to make things harder on Caleb Williams than they are in the games. I mean, Keenan Allen talked about how Jalen Johnson is a just terror to play against, and he hadn't had a catch on him the entire camp. Well, all of a sudden, if Caleb Williams is out there with not Jalen Johnson covering Keenan Allen, and he's got some CB2 or even CB1 and CB2s on DJ Moore, well, now he's got, hey, I got both of my stud outside receivers I can throw to, because our all-pro corner or our Pro Bowl corner is not messing up every single play. Yeah, it's easier. Is that going to hold throughout the regular season? No. If you told the Bears staff that Williams could get game type of reps Would they put him out there? Maybe. But it comes down to, where is your guy now? And for the Commanders and Jayden, he's in an excellent spot. And by the way, his confidence is high. It's got to be. Every time he's been out there, it's gone really well. Where's your guy now? What's the quality of the reps? Not very good. You're probably going to be facing 2s and 3s, maybe a couple of 1s, but those 1s are out there for a reason. They need to prove something. Maybe they're not locked in as 1s. And the scheme is not going to be nearly as challenging as it would be to advance his development. So, where's your guy? What's the quality of the reps? What's the risk? No risk of getting hurt on the sideline compared to actually playing football. And when you factor all those things together, it seems to me like a no-brainer to not play Jaden Daniels this weekend for Dan Quinn and the Commanders. You're so close. He's ready. You've named him QB1. Why would you risk that getting messed up now? But I'm also open to other opinions, and more specifically, yours. 301-230-0980. 301-230-0980. It's the Team 980 listener line, and you can give us a call there and chat with us about what you think in terms of Jaden Daniels playing this weekend. 301-230-0980. Your calls next. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Asking a question to you, very simple one, as we sit here awaiting an announcement from Dan Quinn, probably on Friday, of whether or not Jaden Daniels will start at quarterback for the team. Not in the regular season, that we already know, but in the preseason. And our question is, should he? 301-230-0980 is the Team 980 listener line. Let's get things started with Mark. Mark, thanks for calling. You are on the Hoffman Show. Should Daniels play on Sunday?
Well, I think that definitely he should play. And first of all, thank you for taking my call. I think that he should play. I think that you have a whole new system. You got a whole new quarterback. He needs as much work as he can get to develop the timing with the receivers. So, absolutely, I think he should play. Personally, I don't think I'm sad that he's playing at all this season. I like to see you carry a clipboard. I would have liked Jacoby Brissett to stick around for another year. Don't put the rookie under that much pressure, but it is what it is.
Hold on, Mark. I have to ask. Like, I understand having that opinion in April when you drafted him and haven't seen him yet. But what that you've seen from Jaden Daniels makes you think that he needs more reps or to even not play this year? That's where I think you lose me a little bit.
Okay, well, I think that we're looking at a rookie who has yet to see his first real NFL action. The offensive line is still leaky. It's uncertain. And that's the big thing. You know, we got a great commodity. We saw what he could do. I wouldn't want to put a valuable piece for the future at risk like we did with RG3. So I just think that carrying a clipboard for a year is extremely valuable for him.
Okay. Thanks for calling, Mark. I appreciate. I think Mark's opinion is one that a lot of people have. So I'm not going to sit here and say that it's, I'm not gonna desecrate it. I just vehemently disagree and think it's a fundamental misunderstanding of where we are. And I also understand, I am sensitive to the scarring that Washington football fans have from the Robert Griffin III experience. Jaden Daniels could not be farther from Robert Griffin III as a player or how he approaches the game. Jayden has approached this entire process with humility, with seriousness, with all the things that you want. Robert, frankly, approached it like he was anointed king of the world. And that approach and the entitlement that came with it led to a lot of on-field problems. Now, I'm not trying to relitigate that, nor am I trying to put it all on Robert, because clearly the person who anointed him, the former owner, that guy had a lot of problems. That was one of them. The way that the coaching staff handled it, I do not think was optimal, but Robert, as a young person, did not handle that well either. But as players, Jayden is someone who processes very quickly, gets the ball out, understands the offense on a fundamental level. And an offense, by the way, that is catered in a lot of ways to him and is run by a guy in Cliff who is known for making things extremely easy on the quarterback. Kyle does that in a very different way, and it's a way that didn't necessarily work with what Robert or where Robert was as a player at the time. Clearly, Kyle is one of the best coaches and one of the most quarterback-friendly coaches in the history of the sport, nevertheless in the league currently. But he's also more advanced in that than he was a decade ago when he was the offensive coordinator here in Washington. So I think that when you look at Jayden, the offensive line part, one, I think it's overstated. Two, they understand it and will insulate him. And three, if your whole thing is he hasn't gotten real NFL reps yet, why wouldn't you want to get him those NFL reps? Like, you don't get him by osmosis. He's got to go out there. So I fundamentally disagree with the points made there, because I think it misrepresents where we are with Jaden Daniels in the progression and what we've seen from him, what we know about him, compared to maybe what you might have thought when he was drafted, or about a generic rookie quarterback, the idea of one versus the specifics of Jaden Daniels. 301-230-0980. Should Jaden Daniels play on Sunday? Let's go to John. John, thanks for calling. You are on the Hoffman Show.
Hey, man. How you doing?
I'm good, John.
No, I don't think you should play. It's just my call. I don't understand why we keep trying to put people in a bubble wrap to play a contact sport. Okay? I don't think you should play because I think I've seen enough. When somebody says to me, well, he hasn't faced real NFL, what are you talking about? What have we been doing in the preseason, the practice? This is what you do. You face live bullets. You've already done it. Okay, so now you hold on to a franchise quarterback, which we haven't had here in a long time. I'm 65 years old. I've seen the bad times, I've seen the good times, and I've seen just the terrible times. I'm ready to see the good times again, and you start by letting this guy learn to play. He plays the game. You played the game. You adjust the game to him. With the offensive line, the running back, you run some more. You just do a whole lot of different things. But sitting him on the sideline means absolutely nothing. It's just a waste of time. For the last preseason game, sit him down. He's good. We've seen enough. Come on, let's get ready to go to the 16-game season and see what we got to do. Stop it, people. Stop the crazy. Stop the crazy.
John, Hall of Fame call. Thank you. And John hung up on himself. I didn't even have to click John off the line to get to folks who were next lined up on the Team 980 listener line. Yeah, I mean, I agree with basically everything that John said. He's eventually got to go do it. And I do think that, like, in fairness to other folks with differing opinions, he hasn't faced real NFL talent yet. Like, when he faced the Jets in the preseason game, the ones where they could hit him, unlike the joint practice where it didn't go great in the rain and they couldn't hit him, like Quinnen Williams and Sauce Gardner weren't out there. And that big play that he hits to De'Ami Brown down the sideline probably isn't complete against Sauce Gardner because Sauce Gardner's ridiculous. Against the Dolphins, he's not facing Jalen Ramsey, for instance, and their other top players. So he hasn't faced a true NFL caliber defense. I still think the toughest defense he's probably ever faced in his life was Alabama last year. And that both is in talent potentially because what Saban had built is insane, but also, in terms of complexity, it's very, very simple. Base cover 2, base cover 1, very simple disguises. Like, you're not getting these junk amoeba coverages. You're not getting some of the zone match. You're not getting what it's like to play real NFL quarterback in the preseason. You are getting some of that in joint practices, for sure. And you are getting some of that in your own practices, for sure. And Jayden has played very well, which is why ultimately I come down where John did to say, I've seen enough. And I don't think that the reps you're going to get on Sunday are going to advance his cause anymore. But what you think? 301-230-0980. Let's go to Kevin. Kevin, thanks for holding. You're on the Hoffman Show.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. I think the question is he ready? Has he made all the audibles? Has he interpreted all the coverages? There's one thing that he hasn't done, which you're going to laugh at, but I'm serious about. He hasn't learned to slide. And I know that sounds like, he can learn that in practice, but at game speed, he's got to get in the habit of getting down when he has to get down, because that's going to really determine his season.
Okay, so Kevin, hold on. I'm not gonna laugh. Hold on. I promise I'll let you go for more in a second. I'm not gonna laugh at that because I know it's a concern for a lot of people. I'm just gonna kind of debunk it because the biggest hits that quarterbacks take are in the pocket. That's part one. Part two, Jaden Daniels doesn't need to learn to slide because he knows how already. He needs to practice it more often, not practice it. He needs to do it more often. His game awareness needs to become higher, but he has a ton of examples from the time he was in high school, especially when he gets to Arizona State, and then at LSU, where he does slide or dive or get down in the open field. But he's not going to learn to do that in practice. He doesn't run in practice. He's got to get into the games and understand the speed of the game and where the pursuit is coming from and get that experience. And then, yes, I and they and he would like to see him protect himself more. But when you're out running the football, you know you can get hit. When you're in the pocket, you're thinking about other stuff. You're not protecting yourself in that way. You're reliant on the offensive line and the scheme and everything else to protect you. So the biggest hits he's going to take are when he gets blasted under the chin strap because a blitzer runs free and he gets the ball out in time and there's not a damn thing he can do about it. Not when he's running out in the middle of the field and dudes are chasing him, swiping at his shoelaces.
Well, all I'm saying is the ultimate question here is the Buccaneers are going to throw everything in the kitchen sink at him. And when the real bullets are flying, is he prepared for that? That's what the coaches are paid for to determine. So I'm not going to question whether he should start or not. They might think he might need a few more reps just on a couple of things. Who knows? But and you got to balance out with whether he's going to get hurt or not. But that's the question. Is he ready for what they're going to throw at him game one so that his confidence is there, and that
Definitely.
he doesn't make mistakes and stuff. So that's the ultimate question.
For sure. And that's kind of what we've been saying this entire time it's a test of where he is versus what he gets out of it. And if they think he can get something out of it and that he's not quite ready, I will not question them because they have that understanding. I happen to think, based off what I've seen, he looks real ready. And I also think that New England's probably not going to throw anything out there that is going to add to his experience bank in a meaningful way that prevents some kind of bad thing happening. Not like injury, but bad throw, bad decision happening in the regular season. 301-230-0980 is the phone number. You can call that, and we will ask you, should Jaden Daniels play against the Patriots on Sunday night? And then we'll ask JP Finley about it coming up at 5 o'clock. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and always live on the free Odyssey app. It's the Hoffman Show, Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Anthony, I feel like you play this at the end of the show, which makes sense. Encore, Jay-Z, it's kind of the end. Yeah, we have a long way to go. We have good stuff on the show. We have great stuff on the show. We have JP Finley coming up at 5 o'clock, Eric Flack on the latest with the RFK news at 5:30. But it's only 4:45, not 6:45, bro. You can't be playing the Jay-Z Encore.
I know. It was just I think the rest of the show is gonna fly by. So I think it's 4:45 going on 6:45.
No, that's not how that works.
Okay.
We still have to work. This is work, Anthony.
You're right.
Work. Pick another song. I'm just kidding. Don't do that. Just keep answering the phones as they ring. 301-230-0980 is the phone number. 301-230-0980. The Team 980 listener line where we're asking you, should Jaden Daniels play in the preseason finale? By the way, this is what Dan Quinn said earlier in the week when he was asked about said thing.
We can probably hit more on that like towards the end of the week on Friday. So we're going to do 2 practices against ourselves, Wednesday and Thursday, and then we'll begin the New England prep onto that as we go. But I thought today, Nikki, enough. I just gave you the starting quarterback guy. I mean,
I appreciate
that's
that
taken with both hands
this.
right now. Jeez. No, I'm just kidding. Honestly, we'll talk through all the team next week, and I'll have a better answer for you guys on Friday.
Dan Quinn featuring Nikki Javala there on Monday after DQ named Jayden the starter. So it sounds like they're going to have a ones-on-ones, good-on-good, use this week as like the final training camp practices. And Dan's talked about this as well. It's the final install periods as well, so they're getting the rest of the offense, the rest of the defense in, and that is a big focus for them this week. And then I guess next week they kind of review and then get everybody ready for week 1. But should Jayden play in the regular season after doing all that work this week with the ones? 301-230-0980. Let's go to JT. JT, thanks for calling. You're on the Hoffman Show.
Thank you for having me, Craig. And to answer the question, absolutely not. Unless there was a world where we knew New England were going to have their one plan. That, like you guys said in the previous call, it says absolutely nothing that JD gets out of playing on Sunday. So I would sit him and let him get ready for Tampa and all that Bowles is going to throw at him down there. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, JT, for the call. And that I agree. Unless you're going to get something new out of it, if it's just going to be another preseason game against a vanilla defense, I'm not that interested. 301-230-0980. Cliff, thanks for calling. You are on the Hoffman Show.
Hey, what's going on, Craig? I know a lot of coaches won't do it, but he only had a little bit of work against 2 teams, and it is preseason. We're trying to get this man ready for Tampa. He should play. It's not like he's going to play the whole game. He just play a couple of series or maybe 1 or 2, maybe 3 series, then take him out because he's going to have a 2-week layoff, and it'll also give him a chance to get a feel for the field out at Commander Stadium so that if they need to do adjustments at FedEx early in the season, instead of him going the whole season when he play at FedEx, the field all messed up and stuff like that. And I'll sit back and listen.
All right, Cliff, thanks for the call. I do think that the rhythm part of it, at Commander Stadium is going to be the artist formerly known as FedEx Field. Yes, it is called Commanders Field now. If you missed that this summer, FedEx no longer the sponsor, so Commanders Field. But it's not like Jaden's going to be like, hey, I want the grass shorter. Like, he doesn't – that's not how that works. The field has been terrible in Landover for a long time, and I'm hoping that Josh Harris and company have spent more money on it so they have quality turf and dudes aren't getting messed up on it. Like, that's not it. And my other thing that I know people are saying a thing that sounds like the thing you're supposed to say, but once you look at it for 5 seconds, here's the thing nobody seems to be able to answer that wants him to play is, we got to get him ready. Does he not look ready? I don't know what Jaden Daniels y'all have been watching, but the one that I have seen, not only in the preseason games, where many of you have obviously watched, but as someone who has gone to a lot of training camp practices, and this is also something that we will talk about with JP Finley, who has been to even more training camp practices coming up at 5 p.m., is what have we seen that we want to, like, what have we seen from him that suggests that he's not ready? And you could say, oh, well, he hasn't done a lot of true drop back yet. You think they're going to drop him back for real against a Patriots defense? No. Because either, like, it's just, like, you're doing it against inferior competition because they're not going to play their ones, or they're playing their ones, and now all of a sudden it's like, hey, let's drop him back and expose him to mega hits. Hey, the guy we want to start at left tackle is not available. Cornelius Lucas is out there. Blindside, 5-step drop, Jayden. Let's go. We're not doing that. That's insane. So the stuff that we haven't seen yet, we haven't seen it for a reason. They're not going to do it in the preseason. It's not worth the risk. And so what is it exactly that we're trying to get out of this that you haven't seen that suggests he's not ready to take that next step? And by the way, don't forget, they're seeing more than we are in terms of the practices and what he's doing in the meeting room and the understanding. And he's doing VR reps, I'm sure, as well, and getting some of the mental banking that way. 301-230-0980. Let's go to Anthony. Not that Anthony, the Anthony on the phone. Anthony on the phone, you're on the Hoffman Show.
Hey, Hoffman, thanks for taking my phone call. I agree with you. There's no way we should possibly play Jaden Daniels. He's already shown everything we need him to do. Why risk injury? We are not that team that has the luxury to get cute to send our franchise quarterback out for a third meaningless preseason game. And plus, I'm going to Tampa week 1, so I definitely want to see him healthy there. Thanks for taking my call. Have a great night.
Yeah, you got it. Thanks, Anthony. That's funny. That's and I think sometimes Anthony in the producer studio, not Anthony on the phone, people get confused because, like, if you have a ticket for this weekend, you want to see Jaden Daniels. And I'm not going to lie. I would rather watch Jaden Daniels Sunday night from my couch because I'm not going out there. I thought about it, especially after they announced that Josh Harris is hosting a preseason media availability on Sunday. But I'm not gonna make the drive to Landover. I'll be watching from my couch, and I'd rather watch Jaden Daniels play. I guarantee you, by the way, this game was scheduled as Sunday Night Football because they thought it would be Jaden Daniels versus Drake May. But guess what? Your personal / our personal entertainment value doesn't override the needs of the franchise. And the small burst of joy that we would get from watching Jaden Daniels play football on Sunday is not worth the large burst of joy that we get from seeing him hopefully play and play well for real. Last word on this goes to Anthony in the producer studio. Anthony, would you play Jaden Daniels on Sunday? I say the last word, second to last word. I get the last word. My name's on the show.
I would not. I think they're more than likely, again, I think you mentioned it earlier, have him just do, a serious walkthrough, like his warm-up for, like, every game, and then, like, just tell him he's not going to play. Or they'll just tell him you're not playing this weekend. Yeah, go through the warm-up.
Yeah, when players don't play, like when they're going to be inactive, they go through a pregame workout because they need to get the movement in. They need to practice. Like, it's essentially a practice.
Yeah.
And so he'll go through, I would imagine, the warm-up drills and all that kind of stuff. But then he's not going – like, he'll take a shower before the game and then go put on a nice little Commander's T-shirt, put his little earpiece in, and say, "Go, Jeff Driscoll!" But you don't have to – you can go through the whole routine without actually – playing ball.
Yeah. And I just feel as though there's nothing meaningful that we're going to get from this game, to be honest, in general. So I just wouldn't even put him out there. I don't think it's worth the risk.
Yeah.
And also you just have, other players that you have to evaluate, and maybe we should be focusing on that.
Yeah, and we will for the rest of the week for sure. I think with the quarterback position, like, you know what it is. Driscoll's gonna start and play the most. Mariota's not playing with the groin issue, and then Trace. Well, I guess we'll see if Sam Hartman's back, but I tend to think that it's gonna be Jeff Driscoll for the first half, maybe even 3/4 of Jeff Driscoll, and then Trace McSorley, depending on how much evaluating they want to do of guys down roster. Because that's the other thing, right? Is Driscoll's good enough to give you a look on everybody else. I don't need to see Jaden Daniels out there to get a look on Jahan Dotson. For preseason purposes, Jeff Driscoll's just fine. Marcus Mariota would have been just fine. Trace McSorley, okay, maybe there's an argument there that we need to see certain things, and we don't think that a dude who's been here for a week and a half can operate the offense.
Yeah.
But even then, like, is that worth the risk to your starting quarterback? Probably not. You've had enough snaps in practice and joint practices and other preseason games that you don't do that in the final regular season game. And ultimately, it comes down to, I think, to this. people who say the two arguments for playing him are really with one argument with kind of two prongs. He's not ready because we need to see something. And people can't give an example of when he doesn't look ready, and they can't name the thing that they want to see from him that's going to be attainable in a preseason game against not a starting caliber defense talent-wise, and certainly not a schemed-up defense X's and O's wise. So at that point, seems like a fairly logical conclusion that not playing is the right move. Final word on this, for real, will go to J.P. Finley, the NBC4 reporter and, of course, host for us at Odyssey 106.7 The Fans. B. Mitch and Finley, longtime Commanders insider, will join us next. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980 and always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We'll be joined by JP Finley in just a moment. He's on husband duty, which I know about that life. Sometimes you got to go, pick up something from the grocery store, something that throws off your day. Yeah, I can do that real quick, but it's okay. We'll punish JP by making him stay extra long. We'll keep him through as long as I can come up with questions to ask JP. And plus, Anthony, JP's notoriously short-winded. Doesn't have any depth to his answers.
None at all.
So about 2 questions, and that should cover solid 15 minutes of radio. You just said your little brother. By the way, JP's really in the grocery store, so we're stalling until he calls us, which should happen in about 60 seconds. But you said your brother just moved into to school. And
Yeah,
you're getting all emotional.
Yeah. So my youngest brother, my parents are finally empty nesters.
Woohoo!
He just moved into to school at Delaware State, and my whole family was there, helping him, put things up. And I just called to, check in to see how he's doing and whether or not he's going to cry the first night they leave. And
did you cry when your parents left you at Syracuse?
no, I went to boarding school at high school at Georgetown Prep for 4 years.
Fair
so
enough.
I was used to it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I
was
was
true
to it.
Hey, it's a little different up here.
Yeah, I mean it was a little bit, further away, but I didn't go home when I was at prep. I was fine, being away from home.
Yeah. I just remember my first week or two at Syracuse. I was on South Campus, and the dorm I was in was a little bit older, and the AC was not really that great. And it was the hottest couple days they'd had basically ever. It was 98 degrees.
Ooh.
And my roommate and I basically just sat around in our boxers because having it was the only way to not it was still hot.
Yeah.
But it was better than sitting around and sweating through whatever clothes we were going to have on. And we're in the privacy of our dorm room.
Yeah.
And just being this is terrible. And then we went on to have the coldest, snowiest winter that Syracuse had seen in 100 years. So I really got the full gambit of the weather.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
actually polar opposite. You got the coldest winter?
Yeah, dude. It was. I've not told you this story before.
I don't know. I mean, we both have experienced some cold winters.
Yeah, of course, we went to Syracuse. It's kind of how it works.
Yeah.
But no, dude, they it's funny because I remember there was some snow flurries on Halloween, and then it didn't it was fine again. It was a moderate temperate climate situation, and then late November, just after Thanksgiving, it started to snow. And people are welcome to it's your first Syracuse winter. It's just getting started. And they were this kid coming from South Carolina, went to college in Tennessee for the first 2 years. We're going to give him a hard time about the winter. I didn't grow up visiting my grandparents in New York, in the parts of New York that they all came from. But I was okay, whatever. And then after 2 weeks, it hadn't stopped. And they're yeah, no, this is ridiculous. We've never seen this before.
Yeah.
I'm yeah, I watched the news, and they said they've never had this many consecutive days of snow in Syracuse, New York. Needless to say, that's when I discovered what seasonal depression was.
Yep.
Real talk.
Yeah, not a lot of sun. The days are shorter.
No.
Very dim.
In Syracuse, you walk to class with your head down.
Nah,
Not
for
because
real.
you're sad about going to class or anything in particular on your mind. It's because if you don't, the wind is cold and it will cut your eyeballs out. Which sounds harsh, but that's basically how you feel. All right, that's enough. That's enough rain delay theater, if you will. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it is time for Not My Beat.
Today's top story from the perspective of someone who's there.
You are looking live.
This just in.
Not My Beat.
Today, it is our pleasure to welcome in the one and only host of B. Mitch and Finley on 106.7 The Fan. It is JP Finley. JP, did you get all your chores done?
I did, man. Sorry about that, fellas. I did once spend a weekend in Syracuse in the winter.
Why? Why would you do such an incredibly stupid thing?
When I'm very old, and I'm going to be reminded of that talking to you two, but I was in college when Maryland won the title, and the Sweet 16 and Elite 8 games were in Syracuse. They beat Kentucky and then UConn, and we went to the games, and I stayed at my boy Mark's frat house. I wish I remember what frat it was. Do you know what frat he was in, Ant?
I do not. I didn't know Mark was in a frat, to be honest.
Oh yeah, frat life, man. We got after it pretty good, man. It was awesome, but it was cold as hell.
Yeah, no, that tracks. I will say the funniest fraternity story, just very, very quickly, about Syracuse. I was not in a fraternity up there, but my dad was when he was there in the early 80s, and he was very, very proud of his fraternity, even though they had later been disbanded and barred from campus. And when we went to visit the first time I was looking at going to school there, he was very excited as we drove down a particular road because we knew we were coming up on his frat house. And he was at first horrified because he thought that the rival frat had taken over his frat house, and then was relieved when he realized it had been demolished and turned into a parking lot.
Dude, so Chick Hernandez and I were in the same frat at Maryland, a few years apart. And when Chick was in Sigma Chi, they were like the darlings of the universe. And when I was there, we got thrown off campus.
That I'm not gonna say the Chick part of that necessarily tracks. The U part definitely does, though. So there's that. All right, JP Finley's with us. I was in Ashburn today. Commanders practice. I'm curious, JP, this is such a nerdy football thing that maybe I care about more than others, but like, what was the structure of practice today as they kind of move into their regular season mode? Obviously, it's still open to the media, so you guys that were able to be out there got to see a little bit. I know some of it was during your show, but like from what you know of how they handled practice today, is this something where they're preparing for the regular season, preparing for New England? Is it still like an install period? How are they handling this week as far as you know?
Well, what's funny, Hoff, is it shows that you and I both have been like reporters. I asked DQ that question because I noticed just the scheduling change. Now they're going Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Wednesday, Thursday is 1 o'clock. Friday's 11:30. And what I know about the NFL calendar, the NFL structure, is that's a regular season move because your long days are Wednesday, Thursday. Friday is fast. You try to get everybody out of there, let them have a night with their kids. So I asked DQ that, and he said, it wasn't – they're not game planning or anything for New England, and that next week is kind of funky because you have roster cuts and then no game the following week. But he said he wanted his guys to start to understand how he's going to flow a regular week for week one against Tampa. So the actual practice wasn't exactly that. I think the timeline kind of was. But one thing you'll be fascinated by, Hoffman, is at the end of practice. So say they started at 1, say it was over about 2:30 roughly. Mm-hmm. Maybe it was even like 2:20. But DQ brought everybody in for a huddle, which they usually do. But then, we have to stand, say we're 50 yards away, something like that. And then we can hear them like barking out instructions. And various groups of players ran to various parts of the field, and some of the guys were running sprints. And I got to ask Dan about it a little later. I got a one-on-one with DQ because we're doing a pregame show on Channel 4 on Sunday because the game's on Channel 4. And he explained that the sports science, these guys are wearing these like high-tech GPS trackers at all times.
Yep.
And a lot of guys Saturday night in Miami really went all out and were gassed. But a lot of guys Saturday night in Miami barely played or didn't play at all. And so they were trying to some of these guys had to run sprints at the end of practice, and it was to like level out where their heart rate and all these metrics they keep where it's supposed to be to kind of make sure everybody was hitting their numbers. And I just thought that was really pretty interesting and shows how in tune they are with the data and everything.
Yeah, for sure. I will quickly try to give a strength coach explanation of this. This is something that soccer has been doing for years. They call it top-ups typically in soccer. And basically, the science says that you need to do a certain amount of high-speed running to prevent injury. That if your body is not ready to handle a certain amount of running, which you do by doing that running, then you are at higher risk for injury when you ultimately have to achieve those speeds. And so what they do is they track during the course of the game or a practice, whatever they're tracking, the amount of time you spend going X miles per hour, whatever your number is that is considered high-speed running. I don't know whether they individualize that or whether they do it by position or body weight or whatever they do it by. You'd have to ask like Nabes or one of their sports science guys who probably wouldn't tell you. But the idea is that they are making sure that everybody is getting the amount of high-speed running and sprinting in so that the hamstring specifically, but all the other muscles are used to the amount that you're going to need to do in a game, because they've done the research to say in a game you will run X amount of high-speed running based off your position, based off your usage, and they want everybody to make sure that they can handle that if all of a sudden you are thrust into a starting role in the game. So that makes a lot of sense, and good for them for doing it. There's your info.
That's why you're the perfect guy to. Yeah, I mean, we just ham and egg that. Boom.
Bang. Give us ham, egg, preferably on a croissant, and now I'm back in France. Okay, JP, our question of the day, I'm sure you guys have done this on your show as well. Do you think Jayden will play at all on Sunday? Do you think he should play at all on Sunday?
I'm no and no, frankly. I think preseason has changed so dramatically. If I was running a program, and maybe this is a little different because Jayden's a rookie and you want to get a little more time, but if I had a team without a ton of questions, my true starters, my guys that I know what I need and expect from them for the season in the new 3-game preseason world, I would play those guys the second game into the second half, like a series or two into the second half, and that's all you'd see of them. I wouldn't play him in the first one. I wouldn't play him in the last one. I don't think he's going to play. I don't think most of these starters are going to play. We'll see, though. I mean, sure seems like New England's playing a lot of people, and maybe DQ thinks he has to match that intensity. I kind of doubt it. But I don't think he will play. I don't think he should play. I hate it for fans that this is their only chance to get to go and maybe see him. But I don't think you can let that be part of your calculus. I wish they did a FedEx practice that was open to the public for folks that don't get to experience that, but they did a bunch of training camp practices instead. But no, I don't think it's going to happen. What do you think?
I agree with you. I think that there's just not a lot of value. New England playing people makes it slightly more intriguing because you'll actually at least be playing against top-level competition. But I also think that the way that these defenses are so vanilla in the preseason, you're not he's already proven he can dice a vanilla preseason defense. What are you getting out of it? And that's kind of where I come down on it. I think the more interesting stuff for this game, for this team this weekend, is some of the position battles. And I'm curious what you're more interested in. Are you more interested in the receivers sorting themselves out, or the Derek Forrest, will he or won't he make the roster type of stuff?
Well, I mean, I think this game is far more about your bottom 5 roster spots than it is your playing time allocation for week 1. You know what I mean? I don't think it's been a couple weeks of people yelling about Jahan, whether it's deserved or not, I'm not sure. But I don't think those questions get answered Sunday night at FedEx. I think this is about Tyler Owens and Defoe and how many tight ends are you keeping? You know what I mean? I think Cole Turner has really made a point to show some physicality, and I think they're being coached differently, and I think those things matter. If it's me, I think I'm keeping 4 tight ends because they really seem to want to limit the amount of abuse on Ertz's body and watch it practice. Ertz seems like a big part of this. I think who's your third running back? I think that stuff matters this week. I have no idea what the bottom of the O-line depth chart looks like. You know what I mean? I don't know. I think there's going to be new corners added to this team next week once guys get cut, and I would keep an eye on Dallas specifically. But I don't know what the bottom of those groups look like, and that's where I'd be pretty interested.
No, I agree with you, and especially Logan and I did a 53 that we recorded this morning. Will be out tomorrow for Take Command, and you basically hit on all the positions that we're interested in. A lot of the debates that we had. Cole Turner was a big one for us of, do we keep him, do we not? And we ultimately did for a lot of the reasons that you talked about in terms of how they want to play. But also, I tend to think that the 53 that's named on, what is it, Tuesday, that the deadline is, or is it Monday? Whatever that is, and then there's a 48-hour period. Yeah. It's going to be different by the time we're 48 hours later and everyone goes through waivers and they sign a couple of guys. So I tend to agree with you on that. Is there one in particular that you feel strongly about, whether it's keeping Cole Turner, one of the safeties that has to make it or that shouldn't make it? Any one of those, take your pick, corner, safety, tight end, RB3, O-line guy, that you're like, this dude has got to either be in or be out?
I think Tyler Owens has forced his way onto the team, and I love stories like that. I don't really honestly think that's that much of a debate. I don't know what they're doing. Normally, you would keep 6 corners, 4 safeties. I think that could look like the initial 53. I don't know the 6th corner you're keeping. The 53 that's going to matter is who the following Wednesday, like the Wednesday of Tampa week, that's the 53 that matters, right?
Yes.
Not to say matters is maybe too harsh of a word. One thing I found really interesting today, because I asked DQ about this also, was he said they kind of view it as a final 70 because of the way, like the post-COVID rules with in the larger practice squads and the way you're able to call guys up Saturday night. Like I do think as a football obsessed collective group, we have to like kind of change our mindset to what the league is thinking now. Because if Dan's telling you that, means he and Adam are viewing it that way, and probably lots of teams are viewing it that way, which I find that pretty interesting. I think I think they're going to have to keep more defensive players necessarily than offensive players. Like I don't know that we're looking at a 25-25-3 split. I think it could be 26-24-3. I'm really fascinated to see if they keep 4 tight ends. I think they should. I think you should try to keep Ertz healthy because he has looked really, really good. I also think Sennett is going to play a lot, maybe not a lot, but a decent like H-back role, fullback role, and so in turn, I think you need a couple of extra. I think keeping Cole Turner, I'm not standing on the table, but I think it makes a lot of sense. I don't know. The third running back I think is Wiley right now, but I could be wrong on that. And dude, I don't know how this shakes out, but all Bryson Tremaine has done is make plays. Every time he gets a chance, he makes a play. He's a bigger guy than all the other guys at receiver. Maybe they'll see enough in Martavis Bryant that they think they can keep him around. I kind of doubt that unless he really flashes this week. There just hasn't been that much. And I like the stories where a kid emerges and just forces his way onto a roster. I don't know that Tremaine forces his way onto a roster. And especially a receiver, say you keep 6, generally one of those guys is down on game day anyway. Generally one of your inactives is your 6th wideout. So it's not that imperative, but I feel like he has earned it, and these guys are all about competition. And I'll be curious how that all shakes out. And the other part of this, Hoff, and let's hope, right? Let's all knock on wood that this isn't a determining factor. But, like, injuries are probably going to play a role in this. Like, Jordan McGee, we now know isn't done for the year, but, like, how long, depending on if they had to go in there and kind of clean up his meniscus, probably means we're talking week 3 at the earliest. So, like, what do you do at linebacker? What do you do for somebody behind Bobby Wagner? I think that's something they'll probably be watching the waiver wire too, at least early on. So a lot TBD for sure.
No, for sure. And I think the best thing you said in there that's really, really informative and smart is the thinking about it as a 70, because we had a lot of conversations about that this morning of like, I think they can get this guy through to practice squad and they'll call him up on game day if they need him. And I think Tremaine's a guy like that with the way the numbers are going to work. And I don't know what it is about him. Like, I would put him on the 53 as well. It seems like they're not as high on him, and it seems like the lack of speed is a big deal for them. I'm like, I don't know. He seems to figure out a way to get open and make plays, and he's always around the ball in special teams, so that he seems to get there fast enough. But like him, Cole Turner, like a lot of these guys that we're talking about, I think they're going to want to keep around on practice squad and very well might be active on game day. The other thing with McGee is because he, and I think you and I have been doing the beat thing long enough for years to know these rules, unless they've changed and I'm not aware of it, is because he's injured now but was not on preseason PUP. Like, they're going to have to put him on the 53 to then put him on IR and then bring someone else back. So, again, the 53, the way it starts, is going to be different than what it is that Wednesday of Tampa week, as you said. JP, great stuff, dude.
Well,
really, go ahead. Real quick, wrap us up here.
No. All good, man. I was just going to say, with McGee, depending how long he needs, maybe he doesn't even go to IR. Like,
that's true. Yeah.
If they really think it's 10 days into the regular season, maybe you don't even waste the spot. I don't know. It's going to be fascinating.
No, that's a great point too. All right, JP Finley's got a great pregame coming up on Sunday for NBC4, as this game is Sunday Night Football, and of course, B. Mitch and Finley is daily 10 to 2 over on 106.7 The Fan. Appreciate you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, fellas.
That is JP Finley with us here on the Hoffman Show. When we get back, our pal Eric Flack joins us, WUSA 9's lead investigative reporter who has covered the Commander Stadium pursuit as tightly as anyone. He has got a new update on a firm that DC has hired to explore the RFK site. What are they looking for, and where the hell are our tax dollars going? Real investigative journalism next on the Hoffman Show. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We are streaming live on YouTube as well if you'd like to check us out there at the Team 980. If you're listening on your drive home, want to keep watching when you get home, you can use that free Odyssey app or go to your smart TV and hit the Team 980. And as long as you're subscribed, well, should be one of the first things that pops up for you on that YouTube app. There on that YouTube app, you can also find reporting from WUSA 9 and Eric Fleck. Lots of different things he reports on. But one of the biggest stories that he has been following as closely as anybody is the pursuit of RFK Stadium and the general pursuit of a new stadium by the Washington Commanders. And since there is a new development on that, it is our pleasure to welcome WUSA 9 Chief Investigative Reporter Eric Fleck to the show. Fleck, what's up, dude? Thanks for coming on.
What's up, Hoffman? Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So the thing that you have reported on here, and we'll get into the details in a second, is that the district has hired this firm, ASM Global, to explore whatever it is that they're trying to explore. You'll be able to fill us in the moment. Eric, this is not the most important part of the story, but I just got to say, this is an LA-based firm. We are Washington, D.C. We are the home of more consulting firms than any other city probably in the world. We got your Booz Allens. We got your KPMGs. We got your Deloittes. Why are they going to an LA-based firm? We're literally the butt of every consulting firm, consultant joke that ever has been written. Other places don't even know consultant jokes exist. Why are they hiring a firm from LA? Why are tax scholars doing there? Come on.
If you were frustrated before, just wait till you hear this. The city went out of its way not to hire local or to take bids on this contract. They did what's called, it's the layman's term is a no-bid procurement, no-bid contract. Usually in government, you have to say, okay, we're going to put out a call for a job, a project, in this case a study. We're going to take a whole bunch of bids. We're going to do the one that's most economically responsible while also getting the most bang for our buck. They did not do that in this case. In this case, they had to actually justify the fact that they went straight to this firm in LA, which specializes in this sort of thing. The fact that they specialize in this sort of thing was part of the rationale and reasoning that the city used to go straight to this LA firm and go around the traditional process. They also, and we'll get into this, said that there was a time crunch because Congress is about to approve the legislation that's going to return the RFK land to the city long term. We know that they're not about to do that, and we don't know if are going to do that. Reasons to fast track this contract, go straight to this company that has done 7 of these football stadiums and contract exclusively with them more than $500,000 in taxpayer money to do the second sports related study that has to do with bringing the Commanders back to the RFK site, the second one of these in a year. So we're now close to $1 million total on these sorts of studies.
Wow. That was a question I was asking as a joke, but there's actual substance there. That's
yes, there is.
Well, there's that. Get your jokes off social media. There's your substance. Okay, so what is it that they're actually trying to find, and why is it that they needed a second study after there was a similar study done within the last 12 months as well to investigate what is possible at the RFK site?
Somebody with DC government told me this $100,000 was really more big picture about sports, professional sports specifically, and its economic impact on DC. Spoiler alert, that study said pro sports brings a lot of money into Washington, D.C., and is a financial win for us. There was a piece of that study that related to the big question, which is how the city would pay for or help pay for a new football stadium on the RFK site if it becomes a possibility to lure the Commanders back to D.C. The city refused open records requests to release that piece of it because they said it was trade secrets. In the mayor's words, she doesn't want to show our competitors, meaning Maryland or Virginia, her hand. This study, I've been told, is strictly focused on nothing but RFK. It's strictly focused on get the Commanders back to RFK. How do they lure them back to RFK? How do they build on the RFK site logistically? How big is the stadium going to be? And then most importantly, how does the city, who is projected to be $1.7 billion in debt by 2030, how does the city finance or help finance a stadium at RFK to become partners with the Washington Commanders so they don't build in Maryland or they don't go to Virginia?
Eric Flack, Chief Investigative Reporter, WUSA 9, with us here on The Hoffman Show as we continue to learn more about the Commanders' pursuit of RFK and DC's pursuit of the Commanders. So if, like, in Congress, that's the holdup currently. If they can clear those hurdles, and we can talk about those hurdles in a second, like what then would be the process of, presumably, this is what this study is trying to figure out, is like, what should we actually do with that land? What are the options on the table? And like, who are some of the key players that would have to ultimately approve, whether it's a stadium or anything else that gets to decide what goes on that RFK site if they can get it out of Congress in the first place?
My belief is that if they get the land back through Congress, that's the biggest hurdle. They will figure out, in my opinion, a way to finance this deal. And if they figure out a way to finance this deal, because Josh Harris wants to be at RFK, Mayor Bowser, who is now, really the most powerful politician in Washington, D.C., on the local level, wants the team back. If we get past the hurdle of Congress actually passing this bill, which is not guaranteed, then I think it picks up so much momentum that even opponents challenge on the DC Council. I love this idea on the DC Council, that eventually it becomes so much of a public win, meaning the public wants this, the top elected official wants this, the team wants this, that certain players will not be able to stand in the way. DC Council, I don't believe, will be able to stop this if it becomes an option, which it's not. So, Charles Allen is DC Council member, does not want a stadium on that land. There are voices like his who say we lack affordable housing in Washington, D.C. This is the last undeveloped piece of land in Washington, D.C. You should not put a football stadium on it. They continue to say a football stadium that's only going to be used 8 times a year, 10 times a year. But, that's not the situation anymore, especially if you put a dome on it and do all the things that I certainly believe the Commanders are going to do wherever they ultimately build this stadium. So, there will be opponents on the D.C. Council, but if it gets through Congress, then I think the momentum really, really picks up. And even though it doesn't seem like they have the money, they've never explained how they're going to pay for it, meaning D.C. government. I think ultimately they figure out a way, and looping back to the news of the day, I think that, spending this money with this firm out in L.A. that does specialize in this, that characterizes itself as the world's industry leader in just this sort of thing, they get a roadmap to get this thing done if they get the land back.
Eric Flack, WUSA 9 investigative reporter with us here on the Hoffman Show. Do we have any idea, Eric, what is in this report, whether because you've been able to see parts of it or we're aware of this firm and the other stadiums that they've built and how they've pursued those pathways? And if we don't, how long until you think we figure it out or we find out?
Good question. The contract was actually signed in June. Just came to light here in the last 24 hours. I've asked for clarification from the city on that. The Department of Planning and Economic Development, which is the division within DC government which commissioned this study, is not commenting. The Commanders, by the way, are not commenting. The term of the contract is the last day of September, so the last day of next month. So, in my reading of the contract, that's actually in line with the timeline that would have to be, because presumably the city is saying we need to have all our ducks in a row ready to go the second Congress gives us the land, long term, which is, if it happens, it will happen late in the season, November, December, probably December, probably right before Congress adjourns. And they want to have their ducks ready to go. What's going to be in it? I don't know. I know that they're going to, I think the Commanders, again, this is independent of the Commanders. So this firm may have ideas about how you build it on RFK and this, that, and the other, and this is how big it should be. And those are all included in the study. I have good reason to believe the Commanders already know exactly what the state at this point. It's just figuring out where. So I think that part is not as important, but it will be in the study. What's important is how you're going to pay for it. And they're going to give experience with other cities that they have helped do this and finance this on. I don't know that they worked on Tennessee. I don't know that they worked on Jacksonville. I don't know that they worked on Chicago. I don't know that they worked on Buffalo. other cities that are currently thinking about or building or renovating stadiums. But they will say, we worked with this city, we worked with that city, and this is how they did it, and this is how they did it. And you, under your financial auspices, Washington, D.C., can do it this way. We recommend that this is the best way to try and help kick in or pay for this stadium to lure Washington, the Commanders back to D.C. And there's also aspects of the contract that deal with, like, how do you handle the public relations? How do you get the public on your side? So it's kind of a one-stop shop, if you will, for D.C. government creating a playbook to get the Commanders back.
And it all costs just easy, cool $500,000. Great. Cool. Love it.
565, actually, if you're counting.
But who's counting? You got time for two more questions real quick?
Of course.
Okay. Two more questions for Eric Flack here, chief investigative reporter from WSA9 with us on the Hoffman Show here on the Team 980. And the two questions are, Eric Flack, we know that Jason Wright is no longer the president of the Commanders. We know that he was, in theory, doing some special projects. My guess was that would probably include the stadium that he was working on until he ultimately departs the team at the end of the year. But I'd also imagine that if he was absolutely crushing the stadium beat, he might still be the team president. So from the Commanders side, even though this is a contract with the city of D.C., who is currently working on the stadium, as far as we know, from the Commanders side of thing? And then we will close with the Congress question. But for the Commanders, with Jason Wright no longer as team president, who is currently spearheading, as far as we know, their stadium pursuit?
He's a guy named Kirtan Mehta. Really nice guy. He comes from Senate politics in Washington on Capitol Hill. He was chief of staff for a couple of big-name senators. He knows the Hill very well. I fully believe that his connections on the Hill, hint, hint, RFK, were part of his resume and job qualifications and pro-con list when he was hired. He is now fully taken over that search. Used to be a great guy named Joe Maloney who was doing it. He moved on shortly after the transition, and they brought in this guy named Kirtan Mehta, and he is vice president of public policy, but he is your stadium guy for the Washington Commanders. The team president actually, obviously oversees it a little bit and has input, but they have a guy. They have a guy specifically, I'm sure a high-priced guy, but they have a guy specifically dedicated to this job. And he has been on it, drinking from a fire hose, as they say, since the summer, catching up. And he's running point on all of this.
All right, and then that leaves the actual biggest question in all of this. We've buried the lead. Good job. My journalism professors are proud. I guess we didn't really, because the new news is what we talked about earlier with the consulting firm. But we all know this is all contingent on the land being released by Congress in the first place, which we won't get into the whole home rule argument today. That's a different show. However, Eric Flack, what is the holdup? Is it still Steve Daines? And is it likely that it gets unheld up in time for them to not just go, we need a freaking stadium. Sorry, D.C., we're going to Maryland or Virginia?
I'll do this as succinctly as I can. Steve Daines, senator from Montana, will release his hold on the bill as soon as the Blackfeet family or the Wetzel family from the Blackfeet tribe in Montana remove their opposition. The Washington Commanders, as a way to repair men fence, Blackie Wetzel, member of the Wetzel family, is the guy who created the logo for the formerly Washington Redskins, the Indian head, and they feel very disrespected that it is not used anymore. The Washington Commanders, as part of A Way to Mend Fences, are going to honor the Wetzel family at the Week 2 game, the home opener against Tampa, and honor Blackie Wetzel's contributions to the franchise. The grandson who is running this opposition was more positive than he's ever been. When I spoke to him a couple weeks ago, he said, not definitely, but we're moving in the right direction for me to release my opposition. Daines from Montana says he will release his hold on the bill as soon as his constituent, Brian Wetzel family in Montana, releases their opposition. That is looking like it's trending in the right direction. Once he does that, it still has to get out of a Senate subcommittee that Daines is on and holding it up on. The problem is that there's a whole bunch of other senators that will then throw their hat into the conversation, and it won't just be Republicans. You got people like Bernie Sanders on that subcommittee who don't like helping out billionaires and have created a brand on not helping out billionaires. And so getting out of that subcommittee is in fact no guarantee. If it gets out of the subcommittee to the full Senate, again, remember, it's already passed Congress. It's already passed the House of Representatives. If it gets to the full Senate, so 2 steps to get to the full Senate, then Schumer from New York, who's the majority leader and decides what gets a hearing on the Senate floor, will have to give it a hearing on the Senate floor. Time will be running out. There are other bills it will be competing with. It could get attached. It won't get its own hearing. They don't have time. It could potentially get attached to some other legislation, as it happens in Congress, and get through at the last second. None of this is a guarantee. So I have talked to people close to the situation who want this to happen, and there's nobody assuming that D.C. is going to get control of that land in this congressional cycle by the end of the year. If that happens, Josh Harris, his ownership group, have a huge decision to make with this stadium. Do they wait another year, go back to Congress, try to get it through in a non-election year, which would be easier, thereby pushing back the entire timeline again, or do they move on with Maryland or Virginia?
Wouldn't it be cool, Eric, if there was a senator from D.C. who could argue on behalf of the district in the actual Senate? Like, what a representation? What? Wouldn't that be? Couldn't that be?
That would mean like D.C. residents pay federal taxes. Oh, wait.
I've seen my last pay stub. Sure looks like I do. Anyway, that's an argument for another time, but don't really feel like I need more time because that's the whole freaking point. One of the many points anyway. Eric, great stuff as always. Thank you kindly, sir. Really appreciate your time and your expertise and all your work on this and your continual grace in coming on this radio show to talk about it.
Anytime, my friend. Anytime. Talk to you later.
Eric Fleck, everybody, with us on the Hoffman Show. Yeah, that's kind of the point, is like, unless, I don't know, Tim Kaine decides to be like, hey, I'm going to be a nice neighbor and I'm going to argue on behalf of D.C. as a senator from Virginia. D.C. doesn't have anybody in the room outside of their lobbyists and the people from the team and whatever trying to pull strings behind the scenes, but they don't have anybody with a vote, with skin in the game to unlock their own / our own land. It's ridiculous. Oh, it makes me so mad. And I would say the other thing too, this is a political take, but it is one that is extremely relevant to this conversation. When Eric talks about like the Bernie Sanders opposition, for instance, I have no problem personally with Bernie Sanders, generally speaking, making life hard on billionaires because of a lot of reasons that I won't get into because it's too complex of a take. But what I would say is that is actually not the point here. And I would hope that Bernie Sanders and the other things that he cares about in terms of people being able to rule themselves, the whole home rule theory of DC, this is not hey, are we giving money to Josh Harris to build a stadium vote that Bernie Sanders and people that are on the political polar opposite of Bernie Sanders are going to decide. What they are going to decide is, do we let D.C. decide what to do with that land? And then we, the citizens of the district, can fight amongst ourselves. And I really, really hope that people go that route and say, hey, whatever it is you want to do with this land, it's yours. You get to decide. And if you want to do something that I disagree with, Well, that's politics, baby. And it's not about Bernie Sanders or any of the, Steve Daines or anybody making decisions based off their own views on what is going to happen with the land, based off anything related to the Commanders or their owners. It is about releasing the land to the district so the district can decide for itself. That is the summation of that part of it. Very much appreciate Eric's expertise on the rest of it and some stuff that the district is doing to lay the plans should they actually get that opportunity. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. And Anthony, are we doing a pick six next? Is that what's happening here? What are we doing next?
Yes, pick six.
I just got very passionate about something I care about a lot, and my brain blanked out. The other thing that I really am looking forward to in this show is just wiping the floor with Anthony when it comes to a silly argument we had before the show that we're going to have on the air at 6:30 in regards to whether or not flag football players are going to be better at flag football than NFL players could be at flag football. That's at 6:30. We'll get you caught up on the latest Commanders news of the day next. We're locked in for the final hour of the Hoffman Show on Team 980. You know what it is, Anthony? You know what today is?
Today is Hump Day.
It's Competition Wednesday, bro.
Oh, it's Competition Wednesday. You're right.
You're gonna learn more about that momentarily. Coming up at 6:30, Anthony and I are gonna compete we're gonna have a takeoff. He's gonna have a bad take, and I'm gonna have a good one.
Ooh, should we actually adopt Competition Wednesday?
I was actually just thinking of that. Tell you what, let's hit pick 6, and then we're gonna have a show discussion amidst our discussion of the biggest Commanders headlines of the day.
The 6 biggest Commander storylines.
It is caught!
Delivered at 6 o'clock sharp. It's the Pick 6 at 6.
We set out to find a leader, someone who could take this franchise to the next level, build an elite team that consistently competes for championships.
Number 1.
All right. Dan Quinn has laid out exactly how things are going to look for the Commanders this season internally, and now he's slow rolling the external rollout of how he is organizing the week-by-week ways in which he prepares his team for Sundays, and he shared, again, that external rollout with the media today.
As we get started today, you'll see some themes at practice regarding competition, us going against one another. So Monday is really about what we call Tell the Truth Monday, the things that we wanted to see from the game, what'd you emphasize, what'd you like. And then today we call Competition Wednesday. We'll have some good work, skills together to get sharper and sharper, and that'll be all the way throughout the season. Then as we get into the rest of the week, some of the themes will go, but you'll see at practice today really a lot of good on good, and that'll be the case for today and for tomorrow, before we shift gears on Friday into preparation for Sunday night. So all that said, wanted to get it rolling with you guys, but give you a little insight onto how we have a philosophy for the week. Each day has its own theme, tell the truth, competition. Tomorrow will be about the ball. Friday you'll see a lot of things about finishing and some game management moments and end of the game plays. So each of the day, just staying into that process for that day.
So that does beg the question, Anthony. Do we need to adopt any or all of these for our radio show during football season? And if the answer is yes, what does that look like?
I say yes, we do. I think we just need to do a little bit more, thinking, flushing out of the actual idea. I think the big picture is yes, but, we got to iron out the minor details.
I mean, Tell the Truth Monday seems pretty easy.
I think that's pretty straightforward.
For them, Tuesday's going to be Take the Day Off Tuesday because, that's their off day. That's not actually what they call it. For us, it's a Vibe Check Tuesday, so we got that. Competition Wednesday, we need ideas. You can tweet me at Craig Hoffman, or if you're watching this later on YouTube, or you want to go find the YouTube if you're listening live right now, and leave a comment. That's going to be a really easy way to give us an idea. What should our Competition Wednesday look like? And then we'll address the Thursday and Friday themes once we officially learn what they are. But I like this idea. Dan Quinn not only programming his football team, but helping program radio shows across the DMV. If they have any level of creativity, which we certainly try to, maybe that's our competition, is to do a better Competition Wednesday than the B. Mitch and Finley show. Those jokers. Anyway, here's what else Dan Quinn had to say about theming out the days and why he thinks it's an important and useful tool.
I think it can just help you lock into where you don't have to worry about the game. You just lock into today. The competing part really is it's us going against one another to really sharpen our skills. And there could be a competition that's not scripted, just a third down competition. For instance, you'll see today different down and distances. The coaches, the players all have to react into that moment. But more than anything, it's helping one another be at their best. And that's what I like about it. So if we can really compete against ourselves to whatever the past bar was to see if we can take it further and against one another, the whole room can kind of just lift. And so you don't have to go into the game in that space now. Like today's about getting better and worrying about us and the things that we need to do. And then as tomorrow comes, there'll be a big emphasis on the ball, and it just allows you to stay into those pockets. And if we do that right over the 3 or 4 days, not only will we be prepared, we'll also be ready. And I think there's a difference between the two. Prepared, you're organized, you have it together, but being ready, man, like I can't wait for this game. I can't wait for this moment because I did all these things. And so that's what today brings.
There's some bars, Anthony. You're not going to be prepared. We're going to be ready. Damn. That's good stuff. I'm ready to run through a wall right now.
I was about to say.
My compete level's high right now, bro.
You sound fired up, man.
Fired up. Ready to go. Yeah, I think this is really smart because I think that you tap into what it means to not just compete, but play a sport, right? Like, ultimately, these are games. They're highly competitive, but, like, the game element of it, having fun, getting the juices flowing, and, like, when you can have kind of this fun with it, but also in the same breath focus everybody on a central theme, a thing you're trying to accomplish, that's good coaching right there. Obviously, look, they've got to get the scheme right. They've got to get the players right. That's the stuff that determines wins and losses more than anything else in this league. But as I've said all spring long, all summer long, I really think that they have set themselves up to get the most out of this group. And we're going to see what that most translates to in terms of wins and losses. But they have left no stone unturned in terms of motivation, in terms of focus, in terms of the way that they've rallied the troops. And I for one, really appreciate that.
Number 2.
And we get into what we actually got to do here, which is get the players that you're going to have. Who are the 53? It used to be at this point in camp, you already had made one cut. It was down into the 70s, and then you would ultimately get down to 53. But for DQ and company and Adam Peters, it's now a 53 or 90 straight down to 53. And DQ was asked if there's drawbacks to that at today's press conference.
No, I don't find the drawback in it because I do think there's value in finding that last piece, and so maybe the old days there was the 4th preseason game. Nowadays it's the 3rd where there's more to see. And I would say from the roster spot, from the 40s through 53. And when we get towards the end of the week, we'll talk about New England into next week, and you'll hear us talk about a 70-man roster, now that the practice squad has expanded and you have veterans, you have call-ups, so we kind of think even in a bigger picture than the 53. So I don't find the downside to it because a number of the people that you have here are going to be some ones that you're going to want to continue to work with moving forward, whether on the roster or on the practice squad. So no downside for me in that space.
I think that's interesting because we know who, let's say, the first 15 cuts are going to be. There's just dudes at the end of the roster, and it's not that they're bad football players or that, they never had a shot. Some of them, again, it was highly unlikely, but had they just absolutely balled out in camp, sure, you have a UDFA and Tyler Owens, it's probably going to make it. I don't think a lot of us, while we saw the promise of a guy with his size and speed and everything, it's like, man, this dude's got an uphill battle. And had he been just a normal UDFA, no one would have blinked twice. But he found a way to play himself on the roster. Mitchell Tinsley last year, and I think this year Tinsley's probably not going to make it. So I think that it just is less guys that you had to deal with at the end of camp, and you could be a little bit more focused. But maybe something clicks for a guy. Maybe having that extra 2 weeks or week or whatever it is with them, someone pops in a way you didn't expect. And whether they make the 53 or just make that 70-man roster, in Quinn's words, when you include the practice squad, that could certainly be worth it. And I totally get why coaches and GMs might prefer this way.
Number 3.
All right, continuing on our pick 6 at 6. Who are the toughest groups to evaluate? I will take this moment to plug Take Command, as Logan and I did our 53-man roster projection this morning. It'll come out tomorrow morning, so subscribe and it'll be in your feeds when you wake up, provided that you don't wake up at like 3 in the morning. But we had a full 53, and we'll share some thoughts on that here on the radio tomorrow. If not, just go ahead and do our own 53. But the 2 positions that Quinn named were certainly 2 that we had a really hard time with.
I thought 2 of the groups that have really stood out to me, just been consistent and deep, are at safety and at tight end, and just the practice habits, the willingness to go for it, their battles on special teams. So those have been 2 that have stood out to me of consistently high-level effort, guys supporting one another, and so that's what you want as a coach, where there's really challenging spots and guys really pushing it. And I would say those are 2 of the positions that jump out to me.
And then amongst that, part of the reason that safety position particularly is hard is because Tyler Owens has played himself onto this roster, and that puts Jeremy Reeves, Derek Forrest, maybe a Tariq Castro-Fields at corner, where maybe you would have kept him because you're really looking at like a DB that's more of a special teams guy spot. some of these guys that we thought might have a better chance don't, because Tyler Owens took their spot. Here's Quinn on Owens.
Yeah, I've really been proud of the effort that he's put forth when we were really saying, hey, looking for competitive plays, looking for guys that were absolutely going for it. It was cool to see Saturday night him absolutely emptying the tank, both defensively and on special teams. So he's really been hitting his stride.
One of the things that makes naming a 53 hard is injuries, which brings us to
number 4
and the status of Jayden Newton. Can we get an update, please, Coach Quinn?
Yep. So he has dealing with like a soft tissue injury on his foot, not related to his surgery, and so he's off to the side doing work. And we're fortunate that I'm going to call it a preseason bye is here, because we're going to try to ramp him up towards the end of this week and hopefully into the practice for next week. So he's hit all the marks that we're wanting him to, but we're just trying to make sure there are no setbacks. He's worked like so hard, so I want to make sure like we just don't miss one thing of it.
Soft tissue injury in a foot is a weird one. There's a bunch of little muscles and like really important stuff in your foot, so like it definitely can happen. I also just wonder if it's like a really nasty bruise where like he can't push off and can't cut and can't do the things you need to be a powerful 300-pound football player. And maybe that's what's going on when you say it's unrelated to the foot. There's definitely a chance that it's some of the muscles in the foot that he just hasn't been using them because he was in a boot and he was rehabbing and doing other stuff, and then all of a sudden you go run around in cleats and that changes it. I don't know, Anthony, do you wear cleats when you play flag?
Yeah.
Do you ever have like long stretches where you're not in cleats, then you all of a sudden put your cleats back on, and then all of a sudden you're like, damn, everything hurts?
Yeah. I've done it like between games. Say I have a game, a 2-game break, and then I have another game. I'll take my cleats off, put my Crocs on.
Well, I'm talking like, you don't get into your cleats for like a couple weeks, a couple months, like your off season. Then you get back into it. Yeah. That first time you put cleats on, not super fun. Nope. Track spikes, same thing. I even wore, I was doing a workout yesterday and I put on track flats, not even spikes. My calves and my feet today, whew, buddy.
Hurting.
Wouldn't call it a soft tissue injury, but I'm aware of the soft tissue in my feet.
Yes.
So if you're a big, giant 300-pound lineman, you got all that pressure on your feet, and you haven't really been using all that musculature because it's been in a boot, and you've been trying to intentionally keep the pressure off of it so that the bone inside can heal after you had surgery. I could see why, I guess that could be a thing. Maybe you got stepped on and it's just a bruise. Whatever it is, hopefully it's subsiding and Johnny Newton can be back on the practice field sooner rather than later. As for his defensive line mates,
number 5.
Another position that was really tough when you start to do the 53 is the defensive end spot. KJ Henry feels like he's a lock. Andre Jones Jr., last year's draft pick, we had off of our 53, but is a guy that certainly is going to stick around, I would think, on the practice squad. But Javonte Jean-Baptiste is there. Obviously, Jamin Davis now feels like he has a roster spot. So just how many do they keep? How are some of these guys doing? Quinn today asked specifically about Andre Jones Jr. and KJ Henry, the 2 draft picks from last year.
Yes, I think what you're seeing at defensive end, and we play out on the edge a lot. We're really trying to bring, the speed and, the edge setting ability. And I've seen that from those guys. As the edge players, all downs, first, second, and third downs, the special teams roles for those guys. But really more than anything, I've just seen like their relentless style, their nature of how they want to go play. The play style is so important to us, and both of those two have really embodied, all I can do to make that happen. And so I've been very pleased with both of them.
I think one of the things that's really encouraging and is kind of interesting about the Quinn program and what decisions Peters has to make coming up is nobody's made it easy based off the fact that they're not really trying that hard. Like, they're not playing hard. They're not playing with urgency. They're not doing the bare minimums that Dan Quinn requires of his players in terms of detail and play style. It's a matter of how well do you do the job and how well do we think we can develop you to do the job 6, 12, and 18 weeks from now. That's the question they're trying to answer. And in that way, like, kudos to Andre Jones Jr., kudos to Javonte Jean-Baptiste, kudos to KJ Henry, kudos to Jamin Davis for just playing their asses off week in, week out, snap in, snap out, that is such a difficult decision. And that's ultimately both what you want as a coach and as a GM and what you dread as a coach and a GM is that everybody performs their best, and then it's really hard for you to make the decision because you don't want to say, like, hey, your best wasn't good enough. That's a hard thing to tell someone versus, yeah, you really didn't do what we asked you to do. So, sorry, we're cutting you. It's like, hey, man, you did everything you could, and it's just that guy's better. That's hard. Or you did everything you could do right now. But we hope to have you back on practice squad, and we're going to try to get you to where you are better because that makes us better. And those are the hard discussions. Those are the hard things this time of year. And so KJ Henry, I think, has played his way safely onto the roster. Andre Jones Jr. in more of a fight with the Jamin Davises of the world, with the Javonte John Baptiste in the world, but has certainly given it, I would say, more than the old college try. Done a really excellent job. And then, of course, there is this factor.
Number 6.
Last thing that we'll touch on today in our Pick 6, as we give you some of the biggest storylines, biggest talking points of the day from Command Land, is special teams and how that factors in to a roster decision. And it starts with when you have guys in college, how you evaluate where you even want to put them in the first place. Because there's some, like Bryson Tremaine played on special teams when he was at Stanford. Other guys didn't ever play a snap of special teams because most guys that make it to the NFL are studs at their actual offensive or defensive position. So to start off, Dan Quinn asked how you evaluate college players for special teams roles.
Yeah, because you're right that if they're playing a lot in college, they're probably not playing a lot on special teams. So the rookie player that you're developing on special teams, you have to remind them, man, this is just football. This is just like making a tackle or, running a route. This is how you do it. For the offensive players, we spend some extra time on tackling to make sure we're not leading with our head, we're leading with our shoulder, because that's the person that we're trying to train even more. They don't spend a lot of time on tackling. Talk about the wide receiver who plays on special teams. Like, we don't want them leading with their head. Own a leverage, hit with your shoulder. So like today we had a big presentation on tackling and breaking tackles, and we do it for the whole team, not just for the defense, because we recognize on the team side of things that's going to be there. We've tried to make sure we have a vision for every player, that we bring in, what they can do, where their skills are. It takes a while, but coming in, if you see a certain speed or a certain length, you say, I think he could be a wing and punt. I think he could, be a returner. I think he would be an interior guy and punt return. So you try to find unique things and then make that come to life. Because quite honestly, the rookies don't have a vision for what their special teams is going to look like. It's up to us to show them what that vision can be and look like. And I think Tyler's done a good job of that, and so have some others. But as a rookie, he's demonstrating that kind of speed and physicality.
And then, of course, you have the question of what actually differentiates guys on special teams. That could be the key to them being one of the final guys on the right side of the roster cut.
Yeah, it's a good question, Ben, because I think it's there's a little bit of both. And so you'll hear special teams coaches or head coaches talk about the big four, which is punt, punt return, kickoff, and kickoff return. And so to be a core four player, boy, you better be good in space and have speed. Because those fourth down plays on punt and punt return, the kickoff now and kickoff return ramped up, can I make plays in space? So there'll be some players that will have a featured role mostly on special teams. Now, that could be one or two, offensive players or defensive players where they may not have a leading role on offense or defense. Then there's the player that has roles on both. I may be a backup or a complimentary starter. I'm, playing 50% of the plays, and then you may hear a guy, hey, we'll play him on 2 of the 4. I can play him on punt and kickoff return. So first level is the Jeremy Reeves of the world. That's just established, has it, special teams value, impacting plays. Then it gets into the player that's the complimentary starter that plays, quite a bit, but still has room for, for at least 2 phases. So the fun part, what's going to happen in 2024 is which 2 of the phases have been, let's call it somewhat dormant, for a few years, they are growing again. And it's really cool to see. It's still work in progress, I would say, and I think it will be a little bit fluid as it goes into the beginning part of the season. But I am excited to see it, and I think it's really good for not just the Jeremy Reeves of the world who, make their mark on special teams, but also just for the energy of the game, the players, how we do things. So I'm really pumped about it.
And I happen to think we haven't seen a lot of what the Commanders want to do on special teams. We haven't seen Jamison Crowder even back to return a punt. And I think right now he's still the number one punt returner. So there's a lot to see once we get into the regular season with the kickoff and kickoff return, but also for this team, the way they're going to handle punt returns and what they want to see from their guys back there. And that can also change dramatically if someone makes a big play or a big mistake, frankly, but hopefully a big play on Sunday night against New England. That's our pick six biggest storylines of the day from Ashburn. When we get back here on the Hoffman Show, Anthony Haney is going to try to argue that the flag football quarterback who thinks he's a better quarterback than Patrick Mahomes is right. I didn't, Anthony, that's your argument, right?
Hey, we'll save it for the other side.
You heard the man. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and always live on the free Odyssey app. Sit down. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We're streaming live on YouTube where you see Anthony Haney stretching, warming up, getting his take muscles ready to get absolutely blasted by supreme logic and an inarguable set of facts that are going to render his very silly argument very silly. This starts with a quote from a guy who plays for Team USA flag football.
We have the audio as well.
We do. I'm getting ready to play it. His name is Daryl Duchette, and he and some other flag football players have, in their defense, rightfully tried to start staking their claim to roster spots for the 2028 Olympic Games, where flag football is going to be an Olympic sport. And they are concerned that their spots could perhaps be taken by many of the NFL and former NFL players who have expressed interest in perhaps playing in the Olympics, because when else have footballers had a chance to play in the Olympics? It's something that just is not a part of the culture of gridiron American football, because it's American football. It's not something that's played around the world. Thus, it is not an Olympic sport. There's no World Cup. It is, you play for your NFL team, then you rest up and prepare to play more for your NFL team, and you repeat as many seasons as you can while they pay you lots of money, and then you retire and hope that you planned well. That is the life cycle of a football player. But if you're a flag football player, you're a part of World Cup tournaments and whatever else goes on in the world of flag. And so as they've grown the sport of flag football, many of them have stepped up and said, we deserve to have these spots. And some NFL guys have been like, well, I want to play. And I'm busy playing NFL football. And so whatever. And then U.S. flag football quarterback Daryl Duchette said this.
At the end of the day, I feel like I'm better than Patrick Mahomes because of my IQ of the game. I know he's right now the best in the league. I know he's more accurate. I know he has all these intangibles. But when it comes to flag football, I feel like I know more than him.
Here's what I would tell Daryl Duchette. Congratulations on being right. Give Pat Mahomes 15 minutes and you're going to be wrong. For those that don't know, flag football is a 5-on-5 game. It's played on a much smaller field. It's a skinnier field. There's one quarterback that gets the snap. All other 4 players on the field are eligible. 5 players on defense. One of them typically blitzes. That's the nature of the game. Anthony, I'm going to stop there because you, player of flag football, although yours is a 9-man game.
Yeah, I played 9-man, but the Olympic style that they're going to be playing is 5-man.
You think that this guy's correct?
I do think he is correct, and part of the reason I think he's – just hear me out, Craig. Just hear me out.
I hope that people are going to hear my facepalm through the radio.
I heard it. But I don't think you need to be the greatest thrower of the football when it comes to flag football. I think there are other intangibles that you do need when you're playing this game. I think Patrick Mahomes, yes, he's a quick evaluator of the field, or, you know, I think when it comes to, like, making decisions, it wouldn't be hard for him to, you know, be very decisive.
You think?
Yeah, but I think for flag football, it's a little bit different just because of the zones, the different kinds of zones that they play, the fact that he hasn't played this style of football before. Like, he doesn't know what he's getting himself into, kind of thing. It is football at the end of the day, but the way they scheme these things up is a little bit different. That's all I'm saying.
I never said it's not different. I think it is laughably hilarious to have a lack of understanding of 11-man football, to think you couldn't figure out 5-man football. Like, do you realize how complex NFL defenses are? How hard it is to read it? And that the average time to throw is not that much different from the NFL, where, yes, there's an offensive line and a rush, but now all of a sudden you don't have to worry about that. You don't have to worry about feeling pressure. There's just like kind of a ticking clock in your head of there's one guy, and by the way, I can avoid him, and there might be trick plays and things where we misdirect him, we snap to a different player, all this kind of stuff. Like, Patrick Mahomes sees through the most complex defenses that the NFL has ever schemed up. Defenses right now are better schematically than they have ever been. They are playing these amoeba coverages that are incredibly hard to decipher. You have quarterbacks basically saying, I don't know. Like, there are times that I throw touchdown passes and I don't know what the coverage I just threw against was. I just found the open guy. Pat Mahomes has mastered the NFL game as close to anybody has ever mastered it, at least since Tom Brady. And by the way, he has the elusiveness and the wiggle and the different arm angles and the ability to throw off platform that you would need to play flag football, in watching some flag football earlier this afternoon in preparation for this segment. And I think the part that actually genuinely irks me is that this dude apparently thinks Patty Mahomes is a dum-dum. Mahomes is a savant when it comes to breaking down football. To think that you could succeed in your simple little 5-man game compared to the IQ it takes to play NFL quarterback. Because I will admit, there is a size and weight element to the fact this dude's, like you said, he's like 5'8", 140.
5'8", 140,
and maybe,
quick and shifty as hell.
Yeah, and maybe that 5'8", 140 just means he can't play in the NFL because he can't see over the line and all that kind of stuff, but he's actually great at flag. And, like, clearly he's great at flag. But to think that makes you smarter and that Pat Mahomes couldn't figure out everything you know in 10 minutes is a fundamental misunderstanding of 11-man football and of Patrick M.F. Mahomes.
I think when he's talking about IQ, I think it's the plays that they sort of kind of run. Again, like they play.
That's not what IQ means, though, which seems like a relevant point. Like, IQ is your ability to problem solve. It's not knowledge. It's not how much memorization you could do. Mahomes could learn the plays in 5 seconds. And by the way, even with no plays, he'd probably still win a world championship.
It's the plays that they make, though. I feel as though the routes that they send guys on, the things of that nature, I think that's more so like what he's getting at, as opposed to like actually learning and dissecting, a play.
Okay, Anthony, rubber meets the road here. I tell you, I get 5 NFL players of my choice versus Team USA with this dude at quarterback. I'm going to take Mahomes. I'm going to take Kelsey because I want their chemistry.
Okay.
I'm going to take, and they got to play both ways, right?
No.
Oh, they don't even have to play both ways.
You get 10 players for real. 5 more offense, 5
on defense. God. All right, well, this just became even easier. I'll take, God, who do I want?
And can I ask a counter question after you get your roster?
I'll make it easy. I'll just pick like the absolute like freakiest athletes in the league. I'll pick Tyreek. I'll pick Jamar Chase. I'll pick if I want another like underneath type of guy, give me like Cooper Kupp. Like, say those are my guys, right? Kelsey, Kupp, Chase, Hill, and Mahomes. That's my offense. You're telling me that these dudes that are 5'8", 140 or whatever they are, that they're covering those dudes, that their plays are so amazing that they're beating those dudes?
Hey,
get out of here, bro.
Hey, I'm just saying, you'd be surprised. What's the difference between the 3-on-3 Olympic teams that they, have overseas that feature no NBA players, but they understand the game so much better that they're better off without the NBA players?
You don't think that LeBron, KD, and Steph would have wiped the floor with anybody that any other country put out?
I'm not saying they wouldn't have, but that is the argument that those 3-on-3 teams make. Oh, this person has a better understanding of the game. Oh, we should have this person on the team. Like, that is the argument we get, and guess what? We never have any NBA players on our team.
I also think that there's a contractual element that's just like logistics.
Okay.
Like, it's one thing to play for Team USA 5-on-5. I don't know if they're going to let dudes play 3-on-3. The W does it, which I think is interesting. And by the way, most of the women's team for Team USA is W players. So, again, like, the 5'8", 140 at the quarterback, whatever. But, like, I watched some other highlights. These dudes aren't running 4.3s like Jamar Chase. Like, if you were to put Jamar Chase next to the receiver from Team USA and be like, which one's the pro athlete? 100 out of 100 people are going to be like, it's Jamar Chase. Like, I think it irks me so much because not that these guys aren't great athletes, not that they're super special at what they do. They're clearly the best, like some of the best in the world at flag football. But what are they ultimately? They're guys that didn't make it in 11-man football. And part of the reason is because the athleticism it takes to play the best, like I'm talking NBA, NFL, Major League Baseball, like these dudes are freaks. I do not think the average person realizes not how fast a 4.3 is, how fast a 5.3 40 is. Frankly, if you want to take it here, Tyreek Hill doesn't understand how fast Noah Lyles is. Like, Noah Lyles would run a 4.140 at the NFL Combine. Like, do people realize that? Lyles ran the equivalent of I think it was a 4.3, 4.4 in the 100 meters, but that doesn't count the fact that in the NFL Combine, you take out the gun reaction time. So if you just as calculated from to Noah Lyles ran 40 meters, it was like a low 4.4, I think, but his gun reaction time was 0.178. Mm-hmm. So that means Noah, who was pacing himself for 100 meters, not what he would run for a 60, ran the equivalent of basically a 4.23 40 within a 100-meter race. If he was just like, I'm going to go burners, and the clock starts when I start moving, not their gun reaction time, which is how they do it at the Combine, he'd run a 4.1, and he's not even an elite starter. Yeah. Like Christian Coleman's running a 4.0.
Yeah, easily.
So these dudes that might run a 4.8, 4.9 that are great for flag football, like, good luck chasing Jamar Chase. Good luck chasing JJ, Justin Jefferson. Good luck chasing Tyreek Hill. It's a different caliber of athlete. And so I wrap up with this, because we've now gone on too long, because this actually pissed me off way more than I anticipated. What did Force say? Because you asked an actual NFL player.
I asked him. He's been busy today.
What did Zaire Franklin say? Colts linebacker, who, by the way, faces NFL talent in 7-on-7 every single day of his freaking practice life.
He does. He has been busy today, so I haven't been able to get this answer. So I'll have it for you tomorrow.
If he is willing to do a voice memo that we can play on the show,
I got you. I'll get that. I'll secure that one.
I would appreciate that.
There we go.
We'll take Z any way we can get him. We appreciate his time. I don't want to abuse your friendship, but I do want him to abuse you because you're friends for this very silly opinion that you have. All right. That's enough of that. When we get back, the best parts of the show today and real things real people said into real microphones. brought to you by Floor & Decor. Unbeatable prices, unmatched in stock selection. Floor & Decor has more styles of laminate, vinyl, tile, wood, and stone for anyone looking for the right look at the right price. Your next beautiful space is at Floor & Decor. Hoffman Show, we're on the Team 980. Of course, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Coming up tomorrow on the show, more coverage of the Commanders' preparation for New England. Our football coverage presented by T-Mobile. Switch to T-Mobile, and you can get tons of benefits and still save on every plan versus AT&T and Verizon. Use their savings calculator to find out how at T-Mobile.com/switch. Never read the comments tomorrow as well, Anthony. Looking forward to that. Anything else on the docket for tomorrow?
Maybe Linnell.
That's always a maybe.
That's why I said it with such emphasis on the maybe.
Yeah.
Well,
I guess we'll figure it
DQ.
out. Yeah, Quinn speaking tomorrow, so we'll do pick six. I feel like there's something else in the rundown.
Oh, TC, take command.
Oh yeah, we'll talk about our 53-man roster projection that we did on Take Command. Yep. So got some cool stuff. Friday, this is now locked in. I will be broadcasting live from ESA ahead of the Mystics game. So if you're heading out there, come say what's up in the 6 o'clock hour after the doors open. Be in section 108, and then watch carefully the Mystics game Friday night. Might see some familiar faces on the floor. Your boys got good seats. What's up? Appreciate our guy for hooking us up. I don't know if we want to do shout outs on the radio. I don't know if that's what we're going to do. But he knows. If you're listening, you know who you are, helping us out, getting the good seats. Occasionally we get to do cool stuff. Field trip. Best part of the show today, Anthony. You were a big fan of Caller John, and frankly, so was I.
Hey man, how you doing?
I'm good, John.
No, I don't think you should play. It's just my call. I don't understand why we keep trying to put people in a bubble wrap to play a contact sport, okay? I don't think he should play because I think I've seen enough. When somebody says to me, well, he hasn't faced real NFL, what are you talking about? What have we been doing in the preseason, the practice? This is what you do. You face live bullets. You've already done it, okay? So now you hold on to a franchise quarterback, which we haven't had here in a long time. I'm 65 years old. I've seen the bad times, I've seen the good times, and I've seen just the terrible times. I'm ready to see the good times again, and you start by letting this guy learn to play. He plays the game. You played the game. You adjust the game to him. With the offensive line, the running back, you run some more. You just do a whole lot of different things. But sitting him on the sideline means absolutely nothing. It's just a waste of time. For the last preseason game, sit him down. He's good. We've seen enough. Come on, let's get ready to go to the 16-game season and see what we got to do. Stop it, people. Stop the crazy. Stop the crazy.
Mic drop.
All right, John. 65 years old. I don't want to have that much energy when I'm 65 years old. That's all I want. That's what I took out of that call, Anthony.
I just love the energy, the passion. He's tired too, man.
He's tired.
He's had enough.
Just a certain kind of person that's been around 65 years old and they're tired. And that's how it comes through. All right. Last but not least, you know how we end the show.
Real things.
We're not going to be sucked this year.
Real people.
5-11. Not very good.
Said into real microphones.
You know, the culture is actually damn good.
Oh, no, Anthony. What time's the show end? You didn't get the hand signals in time.
I know. The math was not mathing today. So you know how your brain wasn't working yet. Mine hasn't really worked today.
I've been sharp today. I've been on it today.
You have been on one today.
If you want, man, poor you had to pick an argument with me in the last segment. Silly goose.
I think that's what it was.
If you would like to hear any part of me being really good all show long, check out the Hoffman Show podcast, wherever it is that you get yours. All right, real things, real people said in real microphones. I get made fun of at training camp every year for wearing a hoodie. For protecting myself from the sunburn. And I've got company, apparently. Ezekiel Elliott was asked why he wears a hoodie when it's really hot outside.
Can you explain the hoodie to me? It's 80 degrees out.
So I'm a track guy, and in track, our coaches were always getting on us because in between your events, in between running, you want to keep your sweats on so your muscles stay warm and you have no muscle pulls. So my reason for wearing sweats, pants when I'm out here is because, I don't play special teams, so when we go to special teams periods, I wouldn't say I'm sitting around, but I'm not really doing as much as the other guys. So I want to make sure my muscles stay warm and I don't have any muscle pulls.
Makes sense to me. Also, he's not going to get sunburned.
I still could not do it. I don't care how hot it is. I'm not putting on wet pants.
No, I think under the pads, I actually think he's probably overdoing it.
Yeah.
But like the stuff I wear, here's what I always tell people. First of all, again, Anthony, what time's the show end? I forgot.
55:45.
Okay, so we got time.
Yeah.
Here's what I tell people. People be like, aren't you hot? And here's what I do. I look at them in their short sleeves and their shorts, which I do wear shorts, but specifically their short sleeves. And I go, aren't you? And they go, yeah. And I go, okay, well, you're going to get sunburned and I'm not. And they go, oh. And that kind of ends the argument.
Yeah, that might be me.
Yeah, it might be you. Got to figure out if I'm going to wear some sleeves to this Spirit game on Sunday. A noon kickoff. Yeah, it's going to be hot.
I think you should.
And luckily, the forecast is dropping a little bit. So that's helpful. We don't have time for anything else. I wish we did, because we've had some good ones we've been sitting on all week.
Yeah.
Jim Harbaugh talking about injuries, hilarious. Tom Brady talking about football, amazing.
And we also got Matt Essick telling Chris Russell that he
okay,
has a
hold on.
shoe.
I got 10 seconds to tell you. Chris Russell had his shirt on inside out all day today. Matt Essick caught the moment that he told him on video. I have uploaded the video because I had Matt send it to me to our shorts page at the Team 980 on YouTube. Go watch it.